my talk. Here we go. How he said he living life as a gringo, where you question where you fit in every time you mingle. They say you do this with not enough that. My rapping is really bad. This life as a gringo.
Yes, hello and welcome to another episode of Life as a Gringo. I am Dramos, of course. It is Thursday, so it means it's time for our Thursday Trends episode, and I'm going to be flying solo on today's show. I'm always going to keep it honest with y'all. I had a guest, and they bailed on me last minute, so the show must go on, right? That's the moral of the story. It's nice, though. We had a guest on Tuesday's show, so hopefully you are not sick of just hearing me speak. And we'll get through the stories today. I mean, I'm kind of fired up about a few of them. So maybe this is for the best. And I have to pat myself on the back because I don't do this enough. I think I had mentioned this months ago. I just been talking about like how I've been building out my own studio and all these different things. Y'all, I'm pretty much done with the studio. It is built out. It feels amazing. And I don't say that to be too braggadocious. I'm just proud of myself. And also, I hadn't picked up a power saw ever in my entire life until I, took on this project of building out this studio. So I guess a lesson to be learned here. YouTube is your best friend. Man, a beautiful world we live in. There's a lot of chaos, a lot of shit going on, but there are so many, things that you can do for yourself and utilize all of the resources that are out there, including YouTube, which is like a free college, which is essentially like better than college at this point. They have everything you could ever imagine looking up. And I did that. I built a studio. All that you see on YouTube, on the Cultura podcast YouTube channel, where you can watch the video version of the podcast, I built all that and everything around it. Maybe I'll give like a tour on my social media or something like that. I think I'm going to do a vlog update. Anybody who remembers me from my vlog days on YouTube, my short-lived vlog days. But yeah, that's it. I'm just feeling proud as I look around, and I've been able to kind of just sit in here and chill the last couple of days and just like have a really beautiful, quiet, clear space to work. I'm really happy about that. But moving on, it's Thursday. So let's get into some of these stories, man. One that has been producing meme after meme this last week, of course, is the rumored romance between Bad Bunny and Kendall Jenner. A lot of people have opinions, myself included. We will talk about that. I did want to also revisit the whole Ralph Barbosa versus George Lopez controversy that's been going on. We talked about it on the last episode with Frankie Quinones. But of course, George Lopez sort of talking shit on a young up-and-coming comic named Ralph Barbosa. So we'll talk a bit more about that. I also wanted to highlight this story from wearemetoo.com, and it's of a San Diego street vendor being harassed by a bunch of young Karens. And this apparently, I'm not from the West Coast, but apparently this is sadly becoming a very regular thing where street vendors in the California area are being harassed by the Karens of the world. So we'll get into that. It's a really disgusting story. But we'll talk about that. And then on a positive side of things, let's talk about Rihanna and her Fenty beauty line and the new perfume that she has, and the two women that she has chosen to kind of be the face of it in the advertisements. A beautiful love story, and one that was kept a secret for a while. So this is kind of a beautiful story to be shared out there to the public. And it involves two beauty queens, Miss Argentina and Miss Puerto Rico. We'll talk all about that. I think it's just a beautiful kind of moment, especially particularly for our culture in various ways. I'll leave it at that. And with that said, man, let's first get to the nonsense, the BS from this last week in a segment we call For the People in the Back.
Say it louder for the people in the back. Say it louder for the people in the back.
All right, so I'm going to start light here. Let's just tackle this fucking Bad Bunny story of apparently him and Kendall Jenner having this romance, right? So there was allegedly last week a story that broke of the two of them kissing at a Los Angeles nightclub, okay? And then following that up, you have now Bad Bunny and Kendall Jenner allegedly spotted dining in the same restaurant, right? Nobody has a photo of them actually together on this date. They're just saying that they did arrive and leave around the same time, and that they may have actually been on a double date with Justin Bieber and Hailey Bieber. Interesting stuff. Now, normally I don't give a fuck about this kind of stuff too much. Of course, we talk about it because it's just fun to, kind of go back and forth and give our takes on other people's lives. But I think this one really, hit close to home for a lot of people, especially with the internet and meme culture. First and foremost, they had people were kind of tearing apart Kendall Jenner and what it would sound like her speaking Spanish. There was a lot of memes with that. But I also just think that for a lot of people, we view Bad Bunny as almost this and unfairly probably, saintly figure from our community who is always doing the right thing in regards to representation for us, and is always kind of, even though he's a famous person and arguably the most famous, artist on the planet right now, he never seems to carry himself in that world and never seems to get too caught up in it, right? He always is at least coming across as the humble kid from Puerto Rico, right? From a small town in Puerto Rico. And this kind of flips that idea we have of him on his head, right? Being associated with the Kardashians and the shit show and, man, talentless fortune, talent, and the fortune that they've created on the back of having no talent whatsoever, really. It's just not the type of world that we would expect our boy Benito to be a part of. And I think that's why so many people are kind of a bit taken back by it, especially when he talks about, being so proud to be Puerto Rican and all of these different things. And I guess, the idea of him going out with, one of the most famous white women in the world, I guess you could say, kind of goes against many of the lyrics even that he has in his songs. And listen, everybody's allowed to love who they want to love and be with whoever they want to be with and hook up with whoever they want to hook up with. I just think we all kind of got the notion that, Bad Bunny was maybe just a bit above the whole Kardashian clan and that whole Hollywood scene. But apparently he's maybe fallen into that whole nonsense. And listen, I mean, again, everybody's allowed to hook up with whoever they want, do whatever they want. This is his own life, right? I'm not here to judge the man for what he's doing. But it's like the worst of the possible worst. Go hook up with whoever you want to hook up with. But getting involved and wrapped up in the world of the Kardashians, that's I don't know. I think that's beneath our guy. And maybe he's getting a little bit wrapped up in the Hollywood life. I think it's possible. On the other side of things, there are those who have theories. My girlfriend is at the heart of this one, that this actually isn't real, and this is all being propagandized by Kris Jenner, who is the master of PR. And this is my girlfriend's theory because nobody has found a picture of the two of them actually together on this date. So in her mind, this is all a rumor, and apparently there's no picture of them kissing in the nightclub either, which again, for today's day and age, is very, very rare. So I wouldn't put it past Kris Jenner. I mean, she had no problem exploiting her daughter for a sex tape so they can all become rich and famous. So, I mean, again, Bad Bunny, Benito, you don't need to be wrapped up in this world of this nonsense. Look at what ends up happening for anybody who kind of flies in the Kardashian circle. It's just never really, something good. I think you're a little better than that, Benito. That's all I'm gonna say. But hey, again, to each his own. Now moving on to this whole Ralph Barbosa, George Lopez situation. Again, we talked about it a bit on Tuesday's show with Frankie Quinones. I just think I wanted to kind of dive into it a little bit more. Of course, George Lopez, legendary comedian, OG in the world of comedy. Ralph Barbosa is a really promising newcomer who's been getting a lot of really great, well-deserved attention as of late. George Lopez is on his own podcast talking, when somebody brought up Ralph Barbosa's name, George Lopez essentially said, I have no idea who that is. Who's that? Do you know who that is? Why are we talking about that motherfucker? Basically is what he was saying. And a lot of people were like, whoa, why is George Lopez a legend in this game taking shots at this newcomer? And again, like we were talking about with Frankie, we are our own worst enemies oftentimes as Latinos, and I think as marginalized people in general, where we feel like anybody else from our community who gets success doing something similar to us is now, taking money out of our pocket, taking food out of our mouths, so to speak, right? And a lot of stories are coming out about George Lopez, sort of this being his MO of wanting to be, like Frankie said, that top dog and to tear down other people, even from his community, to make sure that he remains that top sort of Latin comedian. And it's just sad. It's another painful kind of reminder of how we shoot ourselves in the foot. And like, I don't know, when you look at so much of our history being erased and Hollywood ignoring us and only feeling like we're good for stereotypes, like, of course there's a burden on the outside world, the white people that are in fact in control. But we also got to take responsibility for doing wacky ass shit like this, where we are tearing each other down, where someone like George Lopez, through his talent, of course, broke down doors and barriers, but he could have done so much more, right? Like he could have had the leverage to start his own production company that was specifically uplifting new Latin comics or things like that. And listen, I don't know, the specifics of George Lopez's career. I've never been a gigantic fan like that, where I know everything the man has done or hasn't done. But I think it's safe to assume from the way that he's reacted and some of the historical things that people are bringing up who knew him, he's just not that guy who's interested in uplifting others. And, of course, I'm not here to tell anybody what to do with their life or their career and how to count their money, essentially, right? But I also have always talked about this, and I stand by it. I think that because we come from a marginalized community, we all bear some sort of burden, whether we like it or not, to throw the ladder back down, right? When we get to climb up there, we should be looking to throw the ladder back down for the next person, because it only makes us stronger, right? I think that the irony is that George Lopez, yeah, of course, he's a legend, but if the Latin culture had a breakout, more when he was in his prime, he probably would have gotten even more opportunities, right? That's why somebody like Bad Bunny, who we just spoke of, is kicking down the door for so many other Latin artists to now get looks for big features or big placements or award shows and things like that, right? Because, he's striking while the iron is hot, and he's creating this idea of like this Latin momentum, and now everybody's trying to be a part of it. And someone like George Lopez could have done that as well if he was interested in collaborating with people or bringing people up, in the same way someone like Bad Bunny has historically done. And yeah, I just think it's a really sad reminder of us being our own enemies. And it was just a story I wanted to bring up again because I just am so hurt by that, right? And not personally by George Lopez or these actions, right? But by the fact that, I don't know, I guess as someone who's like always like, man, we got to band together, we got to do this, and then you just see somebody with like the utmost power just shitting on that idea and not doing their part. It's like incredibly disappointing, and at times it's like, you know what, I'm just gonna fucking go go live in the woods somewhere for a while and just do my own thing and not worry about trying to do something bigger than myself because some of y'all just got it wrong. And I'm not trying to be negative like that. I like to think that George Lopez is like in the minority, and that even talking to somebody like Frankie, him talking about how this is in fact not how he operates, and he's always been about trying to bring people up. I think that gives me hope. But and kind of coming to the final parts of this whole story, and how it kind of ended. Ralph Barbosa, as we had mentioned, was on Andrew Schultz's podcast and talks about how George Lopez called him personally, and didn't need to make it a whole big fuss, and actually just talked to him man to man, apologizing, and told Ralph that if he ever needed anything, he has his number, which I think is a great move. And it sucks that it took public backlash for George to kind of take that sort of stance. But that's kind of, unfortunately, the mindset of a lot of the people in this world, but specifically in our community, which it hurts a little bit more just because, again, we're marginalized. Our voices are often silenced. And when one of us breaks through and gets to a point of power and leverage and then refuses to use it for any sort of good other than his own, it's just incredibly disappointing, because there are so many other people who would have used that position to help further progress our community. And I think that's what hurts the most about it, and why I kind of wanted to reiterate that story today on our show. Now, the last thing I want to talk about when it comes to this nonsense, the BS, this one is about a street vendor in San Diego who was harassed by a group of young Karens, right? And again, I'm from the East Coast, so we don't have a ton of I don't know, I guess history of like the idea of like street vendors like this. I know that when you go to LA, outside of the baseball games and all that stuff, it's a very common practice. And again, this is in San Diego, but the story on wearemetoo.com talks about how street vendor harassment continues to rise. And there was a man in San Diego who became another victim of it. So Andres Arguelles Alvarez was just minding his own business one night, as they say, working his hot dog stand near the San Diego State University's Viejas Arena. And four college students, four white Karens, decided to come up and harass him. And they were touching his food without consent. They were arguing with him about pricing. And then they even had the nerve to call him an illegal. And I think they actually called all vendors illegals, right? And what they're saying happened here was, and it's all on video, you can find this. I'll put a link to it in the show notes. But they're arguing with him about how his hot dogs are $7. And you hear blatantly and see it on camera, one of the Karens say, quote, "I'm going to fuck you over now, you understand?" And then throws a piece of her food into the stand. Another says, quote, "She's not doing anything, to be honest," while then continuing to go on and touch the dude's food while it's on the grill. Now, this man was better than me because he was politely asking them to please leave while they're screaming in his face, "No, sir." And the women continued to touch his food, grabbing and eating his products without consent. They laugh. Even when he's, telling them, "Please stop, please just go." And again, he's better than me because there would have been ketchup, thrown at these girls. They would have been covered in ketchup and all types of random condiments that belonged on the hot dog, because I wouldn't have taken this shit. But I'm speaking from a place of privilege, right? Now, I don't know this man's status in this country, but either way, I think it is the immigrant story as a whole. Many of the previous generations of our parents or grandparents, where they felt like they had to just be happy to be here. And society told them, just be happy to be here, shut up and do your job and whatever you got to do. But we don't want to hear from you, And many people, older generations, adapted this sort of mentality where they want to, not be seen or heard. They kind of are just grateful to have an opportunity to not be, suffering in their native country. And, this man didn't feel like he could comfortably stand up for himself, right? Like anybody else would have had the police called and all these different things, but it shows you like that's why these street vendors are such easy targets, is people know that they're going to be subservient because they're scared of getting in trouble. They don't want the attention of police coming and all these things. And when you have pieces of shit like these Karens coming up there and taking advantage of that, man, it's really scary to think about humanity, and the world that we currently live in. And, of course, racism has always existed. I'm not going to just put it on him, but man, this like post-Trump MAGA era where these people are so emboldened to just show their hate, and they're being filmed and they don't give a fuck about it, right? And nobody really seems to sadly give a fuck about it, because it's just street vendors, right? And they're less than human in the eyes of so many people, and they can't stand up for themselves for a multitude of reasons. I mean, the man probably doesn't have a permit, right? He's just kind of doing this and hoping for the best, and doesn't feel like he can stand up for himself because it will bring negative attention onto him and his business, which he needs to provide for his family. And it's a really shitty situation that people like these Karens of the world would take advantage of that, knowing that, just to pick on him and to fuck with him when he's literally just trying to make some money to take home to his family. It's fucking disgusting. Now, the college, San Diego State University, has released a statement saying that, quote, none of the individuals in the video are confirmed to be SDSU students. Now, this comment comes after social media essentially claimed otherwise, right? And identified some of these students in the video, allegedly, I should say, and some of them were allegedly even a part of a sorority at the school. Now, the sorority has denied these were the girls involved in the video, that they were actually members of it. The school has also said that the women that the social media video identified were actually misidentified and were not the correct students. Now you had Margaret Chantung. She's the chief spokesperson for Cal State San Marcos, and said that the actions taken in this video are extremely disrespectful to the vendor and go against the university's values. And then said the dean of students is currently, quote, looking into the matter. Interesting. I guess time will tell if the internet, identified them, correctly as students, or the university is just trying to cover this up, or if they are some other, random people. I think either way, it's incredibly shitty, and you feel for this man who, I'm sure if it is a street vendor, is not rolling cash and, had to front the money for the hot dogs and things like that. And then to now go there and these people destroy his inventory and make that night a loss for him. And I'm sure money that he was counting on for his family. Like, it's just disgusting. And you hope that the people responsible for this are going to be identified and going to be met with some sort of, punishment for it. Right. And then, we are Me Too caught up with the vendor, and he's just explaining how the girls didn't want to pay for the hot dog. They wanted him to give them free food, and he called them clearly, quote, privileged, and said that they began vandalizing his stand and, quote, grabbing the food with their hands and stealing. And yeah, I think privilege is a bit too kind of a word for these future Karens of America that were assaulting this poor guy. But definitely that's a level of privilege where you feel like you can walk up to somebody and tell them what they should be charging, or as he said, asking for free food, and that it's okay, and that if you don't like the price that the man is charging, that you then get to retaliate and harass him, right? Like, that is beyond my own grasp of thinking. Like, if I've never in my life gone somewhere, and as somebody who has grown up in the New York City area, I've seen my own fair share of price gouging happen in various situations. I've never thought to myself, I don't like what you're charging for a price, so I'm going to then flip out on you and destroy your inventory as a result. No. If I don't like the price, I walk away and I go somewhere else, right? It's just like your mom used to say when you go home, we got food at the house, right? Like, that's what my reaction would have been. Do I want to pay $7 for a hot dog? Probably not right now, so let me just walk away. I'm good. I'm not going to go and destroy this man's livelihood because I don't like the pricing that he set up there. But again, that just shows you the boldness, right? And that these girls have been empowered throughout the course of their entire lives to think that they deserve special privilege, that they can tell other people, what they can and can't do with their business, and that they can pick on people that they view to be lesser than to them and have no consequences. It's absolutely fucking crazy. Like, in 2023, where everybody's filming everything, yet you don't give a fuck, in your actions, and you're still going to be out there doing reckless shit like this. It's like, even when we ignore the humanity aspect of it, like, this is just boldness of knowing that you feel like you are untouchable, that the law, that life, that, things do not apply to you, that you are above having to, actually exist here as a normal and positive contributing member of this society, that you think you're above that. And that's what, incidents like this begin to showcase. It's this level of privilege that you are able to act, like an asshole, and it's okay because of the way that you look or the way that you, were brought up or raised, And of course, it's a group of Karens. Of course, the main one there is some blonde-haired white girl who obviously thinks that she is above having to pay for food, or that she gets to dictate what the world around her does or doesn't do. And it's just absolutely ridiculous and disgusting. Now, the crazy part about this, I want to make sure I really paint the picture, is that the vendor talks about how this went on for fucking 40 minutes, over 40 minutes, he says. And talks about how they just wanted to pick on him, and that they would have harassed him even if he gave out the hot dogs for free. Bro, 40 fucking minutes? I'm sorry, what kind of a loser are you that you have an extra 40 plus minutes to spend hanging out at a hot dog stand outside of a stadium? Like, first and foremost. But B, like, 40 minutes, you felt so fucking comfortable that nothing was going to happen to you, that nobody was going to come and hold you accountable, that you felt comfortable enough to stay there for 40 minutes, right? Like, that is a level of privilege that I have never experienced in my life. Like, anytime I've ever done some stupid shit as a young kid, I knew that I had to get in and out because, I did not want anybody coming to see me doing the stupid shit that I was doing, because I knew that would be a wrap for me. But again, these 4 white girls, these 4 future Karens of America are that bold, where they feel like they are that untouchable. They could stand there for 40 minutes harassing a person just trying to do their job. And then you think about the vendor. He talks about how he felt sad and humiliated by it, right? And that even in the interview, he was noticeably still distressed about it. And of course, because of the loss of much of his products. Like, again, we aren't rich here, and somebody who's a street vendor is not rolling in dough. Like, that money that they fronted to buy those hot dogs that day, like, they did that with the idea that they would make their money back and then be able to put some food on the table, right? They were counting on that. And now, not only did he not walk away, I'm sure, with some extra money to buy groceries for his family the next day, he also now is at a loss because of the money he put up front to buy those things. It's just the lack of humanity is really fucking scary, and it's really appalling. And man, white privilege at its finest. And for some reason, I want to blame Taylor Swift. I don't know why that's coming to my head, but that might be my own bias against Taylor Swift coming out. I don't know. But the vendor also, people have been helping this vendor. I want to make sure we end with some positive action that could happen. The vendor has actually gotten a lot of help from the local community. People have been donating money to him via his Venmo account. If you want to do the same, it's at Ice Cream 22, at Ice Cream 22. Ice cream spelled how ice cream is spelled. And it's under his name, Andres Arguelles Alvarez. If you wanted to send the guy a couple bucks to make him feel better about the situation. I know I'm gonna send him a couple bucks because I think it's just a shitty situation. Anyway, that's the nonsense from this last week. People are really fucking shitty, man. I can't get over that. Like, man, white privilege is a very real thing. All right, with that said, let's talk about some positive stuff, man, for our Mi Gente segment. Man, some really cool kind of inclusion happening, and we'll get into all of it. Mi Gente. All right, so something really incredible and I think positive that I wanted to highlight was this new perfume ad from Rihanna's Fenty line, right? And it actually features Miss Puerto Rico and Miss Argentina, who were on a pageant together and actually secretly were dating one another, right? And they actually got married secretly this last November, and they were dating in secret for 2 years, and finally felt comfortable enough when they tied the knot to make their relationship public. And they said, quote, "After deciding to keep our relationship private, we opened the doors to them on a special day." And this is what they wrote in a joint Instagram post, and so many dope things. I think first and foremost to have these Latin women as the face of Rihanna's Fenty Beauty campaign is incredible. I think that in general, what you've seen with Rihanna has done with her lingerie or the beauty stuff is she's put women of color at the forefront and women of all figure sizes when it comes to lingerie and all these different things, and like really revolutionized an industry that basically only catered to white, women who fit into like this stereotypical model mold, right? And not what, is something, and not something that is like a healthy sort of thing to idolize for young women, right? But somebody like Rihanna has come along and totally revolutionized it and crushed, the old world of thinking. And this, I think, ad kind of continues to push that, especially beyond them just being Latin women. I think that in our community specifically, where there is still this level of homophobia that happens and runs rampant, to have two Latin women coming out publicly who, are public figures in beauty pageants and are now going to be on a gigantic campaign like this one that's going to garner so much attention. I just think it's a beautiful kind of progression for our community to not make those who do identify as queer, to not make them feel like they have to hide in the shadows anymore, right? And that they can't be, accepted or have their place in this world and in this community, So all of this kind of stuff, again, when you talk about the idea of inclusion and just diversity and what the goals of that is, it's for people to feel seen. And as a result of feeling seen, they feel comfortable enough to express themselves authentically. And that's all you could ever ask for in this world. That's all any of us, could ever really be striving for. And campaigns like this one, now, of course, they know it's going to bring a lot of attention. Attention brings money, blah, blah, blah. But I think beyond it continues to kind of kick down some of those doors. And again, for our community, where we have a bit of a shady track record when it comes to people of the LGBTQ plus community, I just think stuff like this is incredible, and it's incredible progression to continue to see. So I love it. Salute to Rihanna. Salute to these women. I just think it's a beautiful, beautiful thing. Fabiola Valentin, who is Miss Puerto Rico, and Mariana Varela, who is Miss Argentina. Salute to them for being brave enough to kind of come out there and live their life publicly as they deserve, And I'm sure they are, whether they realize it or not, an inspiration for so many, people who identify in a way that is sadly shunned by so many factions of our community and I guess the world as a whole. So that's beautiful. Salute to them. Salute to Rihanna for doing that work. And now with that said, let's get to our Ask a Gringo segment. I want to get y'all's take on one of these stories. I think y'all are going to have a lot to say on one in particular. So let's, without further ado, let's do it. Let's get into our Ask a Gringo segment.
Ask a Gringo. I have a question.
All right. So today's question for our Ask a Gringo segment is Bad Bunny. What do you think about this whole potential buddy romance between Bad Bunny and Kendall Jenner? I can't believe I'm saying that. Kendall Jenner, y'all. Let's talk about it, though. Let's see what y'all's responses have been. I got a bunch of them. We can't read them all. Let's see. Okay. All right. At Nikki Bourbon just said, why? Laughing my ass off. Yeah. I mean, same response I feel like I had, arguably get, a ton of different, women or that he's attracted to. I'm sure that there's no shortage of women lining up to want to have a night with him. Why get yourself wrapped up in the whole Kardashian drama? I don't know. I love, first of all, how simple these responses are. Nobody seems to be super up for with this. At El Pisano says trash. Simple and to the point, just trash. Love it. And let's see, I'll read one more. At Walking with Light says, it's giving, get out. Man, I think we're all on the same page here. Man, I think also it feels like Bad Bunny has always been like above the fame and above the Hollywood aspect of all of this. And that's kind of something that we've loved about him. And getting intertwined in the Kardashian saga of just fucking being famous for nothing and being obsessed with fame for the sake of fame. Like it just kind of cheapens a bit of who we thought, or I guess I should speak for myself, who I thought Bad Bunny was. I always felt like he was kind of above that a little bit, and it's a little bit disappointing, I have to say. I still love him, still a fan. We all kind of make mistakes at the end of the day. Man, now with that said, let's wrap everything we talked about today in a neat little bow in a segment we call Conclusion Stew.
Time for conclusion stew.
All right, so we talked about this Bad Bunny story enough. I think you guys know my opinion at this point, and I think I've heard yours as well. Man, I don't want Bad Bunny to be another one of these people who ends up just getting intertwined with too much Hollywood shit and loses the thing we love about him. That's all I'm saying. Everybody's human, though. Anyway, George Lopez, Ralph Barbosa. I just think this is, again, in a nutshell, one of the many reasons why our community is in the position that it is in right now. And listen, we're having an incredible moment. There's so many stories coming to life and people, really rising to the top, and it's beautiful. But it's long overdue. And of course, you have to blame the idea of white supremacy and how that has, whitewashed every industry, and how Hollywood has, not felt the need to tell our stories or not cared to. All of that is real. But also, we haven't done ourselves any favors by, when one of us gets into a position of power, that we then take a responsibility to try and bring the next person up and to create a movement behind our moment. And someone like George Lopez is an example of how we failed at that and we've fallen short. And hopefully our generation, this next generation, kind of learns from this and is trying to do better, which I think we are. But yeah, it's just sad to see someone like George Lopez have this reputation of being a hater on his own people and still at his own level and age that he is right now, feeling the need to tear somebody else down. Again, I think it's just a sad reminder that we oftentimes are our own worst enemies and that we do bear some blame in why our stories aren't told the way we want them to be told, why our history has been whitewashed, and why we don't have representation as we should in certain areas. And then, man, this whole street vendor in San Diego, it's just sad. And again, it is white supremacy at its best, the way that it shows itself in the modern era, and it's white privilege, right? This group of Karens, the future Karens of America here, felt emboldened to hang out and harass this guy for 40 minutes. 40 minutes because they didn't like the price of his hot dogs, or they wanted him to give it to them for free because they thought they were owed something. For what? For being born? They're now owed to get whatever they want for being born white, I should say. It's just a sad current state of the world that we live in right now. And people like this man who are, just sort of trying to get by and don't feel like they can stand up for themselves, they're going to continue to be easy targets like this. And the rest of us need to gather around them and make sure shit like this doesn't happen and call out people when they decide to, just be shitty people. And I really hope that the identities of these girls are made public. I know there's been a lot of backlash to schools saying that they were misidentified. They're not actually students. Internet says otherwise. But they need to have some sort of wake-up call that you do not get to be an asshole and harass people and to fuck around with their livelihood simply because you feel like it. Because the world has told you that you are above the law and that you can do anything you want in this life, essentially, right? These girls need a wake-up call to how life actually works and that their white privilege is not a get-out-of-jail-free card for every stupid thing they want to do in this life. It's just terrible. My heart goes out to anybody who's suffering things like that. It's a very sad thing. And again, his Venmo at IceCream22 if you want to donate. His name is Andres Arguelles Alvarez. And it's under his name. Now, this other story on a positive side of things that we talked about, Rihanna's new perfume ad for Fenty, featuring Miss Argentina and Miss Puerto Rico, who are married. They are, two women who had to keep their relationship a secret for the better part of 2 years and now publicly come out. And I just think things like this are beautiful. Again, inclusion, it is completely necessary to allow people to feel seen, feel heard, and to feel empowered to truly be themselves in a world that keeps trying to remind us all of just how different we are and how much we don't belong, right? And, maybe I'm aggrandizing this ad just a little bit. Of course, they knew they're going to make money off of it and it was going to get a lot of PR. But either way, I think this is just a great sort of example of what the new generation wants and us sort of shedding the old world ideas around homophobia and queerness in general that are just really toxic and terrible parts of our history and our community, particularly for the older generation. So, man, beautiful stuff to see. And man, that is it. My book, I sound like a broken record. Just Be. The pre-order, we're entering like the final couple weeks of pre-order, and then it's going to start shipping. And man, you want to get your hands on a copy, reserve it so I can sign it and all that good stuff for you. www.justbe.nyc, right? Go get the book. I would appreciate it. It's meant to inspire you. I literally reference it because it's a reminder to myself to be present and to remain inspired in this world. I put a lot of work into it. So definitely appreciate it if you check it out. There's some really dope merch attached to it as well. If you're watching the video version of the show, I have a beanie on right now. I'm really excited about. That's a part of the packages. And man, yeah. And Street Stoke podcast, Monday through Friday, 10 to 15 minutes, hip hop lyrics mixed with ancient Stoic philosophy with the intention of inspiring you, getting you some inspiration to start your day. And at DJ Dramos on socials, you want to get in touch, you want to be a part of the Ask a Gringo segments, that's where you'll find me. And that's it. Have an amazing weekend, and I'll catch y'all on Tuesday. Till then, stay safe. Peace.